Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm going to give my thoughts and opinion about a recent story of a teacher that was asked to take down a sign that says everyone is welcome here. I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions about that. So here they are. If you look at that sign at face value, it sounds welcoming. It sounds all-inclusive. It sounds like a good message. However, that kind of message can be twisted and used to enable toxic behavior or bad habits. Even harmful habits, really. Under the name of tolerance and inclusivity. So I have a few questions now. But this right here is actually something that's woke, and that's probably why it was taken down, and I would agree with that reasoning. Because that stuff, again, it sounds good at face value, it has a hidden, darker meaning to it. Okay? Okay, so inclusivity can be good, but not when it enables toxic behavior. Inclusivity can be good, but not when it enables bad or harmful habits. Okay? Inclusivity can be good, but not when it comes to talking about stuff that little kids are too young to hear about. You know what I'm saying? Like, not when it gets inappropriate with kids, if you will. Not when it comes to certain topics that teachers really should not be talking to kids about. So, I believe that that sign is more woke related and possibly more aimed at like DEI stuff and welcoming LGBTQ stuff. Now, first of all, what grade is this teacher teaching? I didn't see what grade when I looked at that story. Got to look at what grade that teacher was teaching, because if these are young kids, even if they're teenagers, there should not be any transgender kids. In fact, there are not. And kids they're too young to make that kind of choice. Especially to go through with the operation. They are too young to make that kind of choice. You have teenagers now. I think you hear people who are detransitioning. And Brett Cooper has recently posted a video going into that. Yeah, I recommend checking that out because she goes real good in that stuff. I haven't had a chance to watch it myself, but I know she has talked about it before. And that people detransitioning, and it's all very insightful. And she's probably diving deeper now because this is something that she's talked about before. And people want to, okay, there's a time where, like, this kind of stuff, like, this is something everybody would agree on. Like, there are no trans kids, like, kids are too young for that. And then, about, I think 2011, 2012, somewhere around that area, that's when you first started hearing about, trans kids, like a transgender preteen, like a transgender, I think the kid was 11 years old, and actually went through with the surgery. At 11 years old, that is insane. That is insane. And then there's a couple in the UK I don't remember exactly where, whether it was England or Australia or something. They are raising the kid to be genderless. Oh, what if the kid decide when they're older? And that kid is probably now about 13 years old, somewhere around that area. Because, like I said, this is around 2011, 2003. And this was so rare that this right here made the news back then. And a lot of these kids, people who are now in their early 20s, they became trans. They had the surgery as preteens, which I think is wrong. I don't know how that got approved and why those parents went along with it. Anyways, people who had the surgery, even back at like preteen age, they're now in their 20s, and they now regret. They now look back and then realize that they were brainwashed. They thought it was them. They thought that this is who they were, but now they realize that they was manipulated. They was brainwashed. All of that stuff. And now, because they've had that surgery at a very young age, it's done irreversible damage to them. So, because of that kind of stuff, like, this is because of, that right there is a side effect of inclusivity policies, which again sounds good at face value, but could have harmful side effects, even if unintended. And something else too. I do not believe that there should be transgender kids. Okay, like let them make that choice as an adult, especially if they want to have that surgery, which I'd still be against, but at least they'd be adults and they'd be responsible for their own actions. Okay, like they're like now, teenage years, and maybe even younger, they can be manipulated and pressured into going along with it just to fit in. So again, that's fine. Everyone's welcome here. Sounds good at face value, but it has a darker meaning to it, whether it's intended or not. See, that kind of policies, especially if they also include like LGBTQ stuff, if they're including that, which why would that be in a school anyways? I mean, I know that it is, but that stuff, that's crazy how that's slowly been tolerated and accepted over the past 13, 14 years. Okay, that's crazy. I mean, like, you look at, say, bathroom policies. What's to stop predators from taking advantage of bathroom policies, especially at schools? Like, at their school, like if there were schools that had like trans bathroom policies, where they allow transgenders to go in like women's bathroom, what's to stop a predator from exploiting that, taking advantage of that, walk into women's bathroom and doing who knows what, or walk into a women's locker room and be a peeping Tom, and maybe even go beyond that? What's to stop that from happening? See, that's the problem with these policies. They sound good at face value, but they open the door to potential danger and acceptance of, toxic behavior or dangerous, harmful behavior, and they don't let you criticize it because or else you'll be labeled as some kind of bigot. Like, what? Like, if you have legitimate concerns about stuff like this, and you could be labeled as some kind of bigot just for bringing them up? That's crazy. And something else that's interesting is that there's even transgender people who think that this kind of stuff should stay out of school. You have people in the LGBT community who says that this kind of stuff should stay out of school. Kids are too young for this. We should let them be kids. They can make that choice as adults. And they're like, we have people who are in the LGBT community who are saying that kids are too young for this. Let's keep this out of school. Now that tells you that how this has gone out of hand. Okay? Like, this has gone from tolerance and acceptance to pushing it and indoctrination. You have kids who, and if they had never heard a single word about the LGBT community or all these other genders, and they'd be perfectly content with being their biological gender the rest of their life, whatever, like, no question asked. And then they hear about all these other made-up genders, and they hey, that sounds cool. I think I start identifying as that. There's probably a bit more to it than that, but yeah, people like how many people? Okay, I'm gonna use Demi Lovato for example. Okay, so Demi Lovato was probably perfectly content with being a girl for most of her life. Okay, she was in probably I think late 20s when we started hearing more about this LGBTQ stuff and all these other genders, this non-binary stuff and all these other made-up genders, and she's probably in her mid to late 20s at that point. And then all of a sudden she decided to start identifying as non-binary and using they/them pronouns for a little bit before going back to she/her pronouns. Again, most of her life. So you're gonna tell me that someone who was born in the early 90s, like there wasn't none of this stuff, none of this gender non-binary stuff, or I mean, only transgenders people that there were was like opposite gender, but you didn't that stuff wasn't talked about in schools or anything. And like she's perfectly like, you gotta tell me that somebody in the mid-20s, like gender, like non-binary gender, and all these other made they didn't even exist when this person was born. You gotta tell me that that person was born as non-binary, even though non-binary, like nobody went by that during the time period that they was born. That's more of a new concept. You didn't hear about that until about 10 years ago. That's when you first heard about that. So most of her life, Demi Lovato was probably perfectly content with being a girl. Then all of a sudden, she decides to identify as non-binary, going by they/them, for a few years before going back to she/her. So that's interesting. So most, you know what I'm saying? Like, why? How could somebody who was supposedly born that way all of a sudden switch back and forth? They make gender sound like an emotion, a feeling. In fact, I don't know if this still is, but it used to be taught in school that there's like a genetic difference between men and women. Like, there's chromosomes and stuff. Like XX and XY. I have to look up who has what. So, but it's genetics. So again, that's fine. Everyone is welcome here. I am concerned that sign might actually be woke. Might have a hidden woke message, which sounds good at face value, but actually has a darker meaning to it, a darker undertone to it, I guess, if that's the word I'm looking for. Because it could unintentionally enable toxic behavior and stuff like that, and harmful attitudes and harmful actions, and you know what I'm saying? So you don't just look at the message and look at how it's like. You have to see if you could something different. Like, what is the potential consequence of this kind of message? Could this kind of message be exploited and misused, regardless of what the original intent might have been? And has it been misused before? You have to explore all these options. You have to explore these legitimate questions and not just dismiss them as some kind of bigot or discrimination or something like that. These are legitimate questions. Now, if it turns out that this teacher's had that signed up before any of that stuff, before any like woke stuff, and maybe that sign was meant to be more like as in like it's supposed to meant to stand against racism and stuff, like a unity, then that is just unfortunate, because in this political society, in this political climate that we're in, it could be misinterpreted. Even if the original message, even if the sign was meant to be more, actually meant for unity, and was for more